you're my 900th official 900th is going to be on Boxing Day, right?
Okay.
I'm doing like a. So I'll say this right now. My secret hope, I was trying to get Kevin Eastman to come on the show for my 900th episode.
Oh, wow.
The bad news is I'm not going to get him for 900. I'm going to get him in January though. So that's kind of cool.
That's cool. Hey, that's a big get, man. Eastman, that dude's a legend.
Yeah. He's on my list. But here's the other thing. This is my last 99. Like you're like the first of the last 100 for sure. Like this.
Yeah.
I'm taking my show
Nice.
literally. My plan is to take my show literally on the road.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's rad, man. Go and interview people where they are. I love it.
Well, yeah, eating ice cream and drinking booze on the road and just doing Hey, dude, look, man, I had here's the epiphany of life I had in the last 3 years. People make money playing video games. People make money putting content out there. People make money doing literally anything. The challenge we all have is taking what we love and actually taking the guts of the business, the true business end of it, and go, how can I turn this into something fun?
Absolutely. Yeah. Being able to monetize your talent. It's that's the big decision everybody's got to make, figuring out how to do that.
Yeah. So I'm too old to work a real job, Rich.
Yeah, I get it. You know what? I've worked for myself now for, God, 15 years. And there's no way I could go back to punching a time clock. I don't want to.
I have a cool side gig. I work at the Saddle Dome, which means I get to go to all the hockey games, events, and stuff, and I work those.
Oh, yeah.
That's fun.
That's fun. Yeah. I mean, like, I seriously have thought about getting a job at the Regal Cinemas IMAX here in Knoxville. Not because I need the job, just because I kind of want to work in a movie theater, and I would love to have that, ability just to go in and be like, yeah, I'm working here because I want to. And the minute I decide I don't want to, fuck off, I'll leave.
It isn't. Well, I'm at again, I'm not quite financially at that point where I should be at that point, but I'm kind of there already in my head. If I'm not having fun, I bail. I just, that's life's too fucking short. It's just so
Amen,
short.
Bro.
So I want to do the really fun stuff. And so my plan is my goal is May, but it might be like June. It might be June, might be July, but I'm on the road and I'm not looking back for a good.
Right on, man. Hey, when you do it, you do it. It takes what it takes, but you'll be happier for it when you get it going.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's it's one of my two crazy plans. I do my first Kickstarter in April next year.
Okay. Yeah.
And if I get to 200 backers, I do a karaoke night for my patrons.
I love it. I love it.
I'm terrified. I just put a like a karaoke night suggestion on my Facebook. The first song was from my sister. It was "Man, I Feel Like a Woman" by Shania Twain.
Oh man, I love karaoke. I used to own a karaoke bar, actually.
Really?
Oh yeah. It was the Brown Coat Pub and Theater in Wilmington, North Carolina, and we opened up at 7 every night. We did plays, sometimes movies, but plays and movies from 7 until 10, and then at 10:30 we opened up and did karaoke late night every night of the week. It was such a rad experience.
Okay, you know what? I don't think I've ever asked you this because I know we talked about books, but you sound like a man who just loves stories in general. So
I do.
What's the story you fell in love with first?
Oh wow.
I feel that's a really good question.
That's a fantastic question. The story I fell in love with first. Okay, so I'm gonna exclude, all the Dr. Seuss and Disney stuff, from when I was a little kid. I'm gonna go to when I was, a teenager and starting to form my own opinions and complex ideas about things. And that's when I discovered Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire.
Okay.
And I was way too young. I mean, way too young to be reading Anne Rice. But my parents never censored anything. They would take the time to talk to me about whatever I wanted to watch, whatever video game I wanted to play, whatever book I wanted to read. They never censored me, but they would talk to me and they'd be like, like, okay, you understand this isn't real, right? Yes. You can't cut somebody up with a chainsaw. Yes, mom, will you please shut up so I can watch the movie? It was that type of thing. But yeah, Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire was the first story that I truly fell in love with. I'm not a person who rereads books very often, and I don't really rewatch television shows either or movies. It's just not. I want to see new things. But I have reread all of the Vampire Chronicles 3 times, and I just love those stories. And so yeah, that would be the first story that I really fell in love with, and it launched me on an obsession with vampires.
So the one I fell in love with, and I have a similar. Although I did not go to my dad with this because the book I read early, not the one I fell in love with, but the book I read too early was Robert Heinlein's future history stuff. Like as
Okay.
a teenager, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really feel like I should have this conversation. Hey, Dad, what's a Texas Star?
Mm.
Because anyone that has read Heinlein after Stranger in a Strange Land will tell you it's kinky shit. It
Oh yeah.
really is. It's really, really
Mm-hmm.
is. It's one of those things where you just like, I don't know who I could have this adult conversation with.
Not your parents.
Yeah. I'm not even sure there's a lot of adults I could even now today can have that conversation with. Like,
For
what is
real.
this? Right. So how does
Right.
that? Right. But the one I fell in love with was Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury.
Oh, I love Bradbury. Bradbury's such a brilliant writer.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Fahrenheit 451 was the one that made me afraid, but
Yeah.
Martian Chronicles was the one that let me dream. And I love that book.
Oh, you've been practicing that line for a while.
No,
That's a good one. Yeah,
it's a
that's
good
a good
line though.
line, man.
Yeah,
Write
it's
that
true.
one down.
Yeah,
Write
no,
that
it's
line down.
well. So one of my books I'm working on next year, I'm actually I'm doing my first graphic novel. It's a homage to Fahrenheit 451. It
Nice.
literally is a true homage to it. It's same name of the characters, slightly different scenario, but the same core idea of what happiness and empathy in the human spirit looks like.
Mm-hmm.
That I very much love that story, and that's right. So I'm doing it like, yeah, man. Ray Bradbury is the man. I don't think there is not too many people who have read Bradbury that will look at you in the eye and say he's terrible. Like they can't do it.
Right? No, no. I mean, yeah, he may be. Now, I understand if you say Bradbury's not your style, or if you don't like the genre, but there's no way that you can deny the the accomplishments and just how impactful and wonderful his works are.
If you want to see a whole bunch of comic people turn into fanboys, just show Bradbury's work.
Oh,
Oh
amen.
yeah.
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
yeah. There's not again. There is almost no one. Right. Again, it's another example of this. I say this with respect. I love his comics, but I'm not as crazy about his novels. Neil Gaiman, he's great.
Mhm. Oh
I
yeah.
don't deny it, but I read Bradbury first, and I think
Mhm.
even Gaiman would acknowledge that Bradbury is better than him, right? He would
Oh,
just
and
say it.
Bradbury he influenced Neil
Yeah,
Gaiman. There's not a. I'll be honest. There's not a writer out there who hasn't been influenced by Ray Bradbury in some way or another.
yeah,
He's just that prolific.
yeah. He's that awesome. Again. He's the guy. Now, this is not my line. This is something I read that someone described. Ray Bradbury is the guy you go to a party with. You see the dude drinking, and he'll grab you, and he'll come here. Look how wonderful and magical that really is. And that is who he is as a writer, and that's why I love him so much. Right? I think. I like I said, those are my two favorites. But I mean, if you love Dandelion Wine, Something Wicked This Way Comes, right?
Hmm.
That like he wrote so many great books that it was just like that's who I want to be when I grow up.
Heck yeah, we all want to be that. I
Yeah.
mean, God, to be just that epic level of writer, man, we all dream of that, you know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I love Asimov. Like I grew up with my science fiction was my foundation, but yeah, no. It's like I don't want to be Asimov. As prolific
Right.
as he was, I don't want to be him.
Mhm.
Bradbury, That's what I want to make the audience feel like.
Heck yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. That's what it comes down to. So, man, what have you been up to since we last? Like, we had a really. I loved our conversation at the end, but just unfortunately, you got caught in like a storm. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So recently, I just finished up my scripts for my next comic series. It's called Prometheus in Chains. It's a play on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, set in the post World War II atomic age. In this story, Victor and Elizabeth Frankenstein are two of the Jewish scientists that fled Germany, came to the U.S., worked on the Manhattan Project to help the Allies bring down the Reich. And during this process, unfortunately, Elizabeth, due to radiation exposure, develops cancer and ultimately passes away, which drives Victor into this really deep, dark spiral of depression and obsession. He becomes obsessed with bringing Elizabeth back. And so you get the dual metaphors of the bomb and his grief representing the creature. And then, of course, ultimately, Elizabeth's reanimated body becomes the physical manifestation of the creature.
Ooh. Okay. So,
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask this really fun thing. Were you or were you not a Full Metal Alchemist fan?
Oh, yeah. Loved Full Metal Alchemist.
That
Yep.
reminds me a little bit. I hope you don't take that the wrong way. It
No, no.
reminds me just that's
You want to
the
compare me to Full Metal Alchemist? Please compare me to Full Metal Alchemist.
you're like,
I mean, I don't know if anything I write will ever be that good, but if somebody wants to put me in the same
the
sentence, hell
no,
yes.
no, it sounds like that. Like, one of the things I love about that show, it deals with the very fundamental aspect of grief. Right,
Mm-hmm.
two kids trying to save their mom is what starts the whole
Mm-hmm.
story and the journey they go on as a result. And in one way, like, their automail was their grief, like their scars
Mm-hmm.
from their losses, and that,
Oh yeah.
right. And also probably my favorite ending of an anime ever. I love
Mm.
the ending of that. I love the ending of that so much. Both of them, actually. But yeah, so I was
Mm-hmm.
just like, but no, it's just like, it just sounds to me like you're going into some really, like, the same kind of concept, the grief and the scars we carry and how
Yeah.
they can manifest in some really, really dark ways. We all have to do it. Like, we all suffer at some
Mm-hmm.
point in our lives a loss. And when you get to that, it's just like, well, you try to save it because you don't want to lose that precious thing, but that's just part of life.
Yeah, and this has been a very personal story for me. I've put it out there. I don't hide the fact that I suffer from major depression and PTSD. My wife passed away in 2020, and I'm still recovering from that. I'm getting a lot of help in therapy, and writing Prometheus in Chains has been both therapeutic and absolute hell to write. Because in writing it, I have had to confront my own grief and my own PTSD. I've had to stare that monster right in the eye and face it. And that's not an easy thing to do.
Uh,
And so I was very pleased when I was able to put the final word on the page, because now my job is done. I have written this book and I have laid it bare out there on the table for the world to see. And now I can go on and face something maybe a little lighter, than what we've had to deal with in Prometheus. But I think Prometheus it's an important work because there are, as you said, we all suffer, and there are a lot of people out there that suffer with the same type of depression, PTSD, and other mental illnesses as I do. And if my book can help one of them put down the gun before pulling the trigger, then it's worth it. And so I hope anybody who's listening or watching this, if you're suffering from PTSD, if you're suffering from depression, there's no shame in that. I'm here to tell you, by any measure, I am a very successful person. I live a very balanced, I live a good life. I'm very grateful for the life I lead. but I'm also a depressed person. Robin Williams, if you took a look at him, you would never know how badly his depression affected him because he's always smiling, he's always laughing, he's always telling jokes, but he took his own life because of depression. So if you're out there, if you are suffering, reach out. You can reach out to me. I don't know you. I don't need to know you. You hit me up on social media and say you need to talk to somebody. I'm going to be there for you. So because there were some really good people who were there for me, and I want to pay that forward.
Okay, so look, I want to get a little personal with this, but also I just want to if you tell me to stop, I'll
Sure.
stop. That right? If
Absolutely.
it's just because I kind of want to deal with. I think the hardest thing, the PTSD part of it. We'll go there first. I think that's it's slightly easier, right? It's right. We'll go there, right? I think I just remember when I was a kid, my parents went through an incredibly nasty divorce. So, like, to such a point that really personal stuff I had to I was like 8, 9 years old. Some of the things I saw, and I realized, like, for me, what it ultimately had to come down to is sooner that pain I was trying to hold back, I had to face it
Hmm.
sooner or later,
Hmm.
and it was the only way I was going to move forward. It's the only way to do it, but
Hmm.
it
It is.
sucks. It sucks so fucking much because it's not fair.
Hmm.
That's the hardest part about it, honestly. You're going to lose everything in this life at some point. Like, in your intellectually speaking, you know it.
Hmm.
But it's one thing to know it, it's another thing to experience it.
Yep.
And when you go through it, when you lose something that you think was fundamentally there. In your case, I don't know how long you were married, but from what
Almost 20
it's
years, 18 years.
that's a long time to be with somebody and someone you loved her very much. I can even tell
Yeah.
just looking at you, you love her very, very much.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I interviewed Spider Robinson, like a long time ago, like ultimate thing. Like, so the first half of the conversation was he talked about his White House experience, which was
Mm.
hilarious. But the second half was just about his wife, because his wife had passed on,
Mm.
right? And he loved, like, the biggest thing I listened to. It was funny. It wasn't funny. It was just something I just realized in the conversation is I still loved her very much, right? And I think that's a
Hmm.
very normal reaction. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Right.
one of the things you learn or that I've learned in therapy is you don't you don't move on, you just move forward. Because when you
Mm,
say the word moving on, it sounds like you're leaving something behind. But you don't have to leave that person, you don't have to leave them behind. You just have to carry them with you. And, they're not with you in a physical sense, but, and this is, I used to kind of think it was cheesy when people would say things like this, but now that I've experienced, I understand it more. When you remember them, as long as you remember them, they're still alive in you.
mhm,
And in the beginning, those memories were very painful and caused caused a lot of nightmares, caused a lot of flashbacks, and flashbacks are absolutely terrifying. But now through EMDR therapy, which is kind of like hypnosis, I've learned to put those memories on a shelf and I can
mm,
go to them and pull them down whenever I want. And now that I'm in control of when I have those memories, I take a lot more comfort in them, because before it felt like I was powerless, like the memories were dictating the outcome to me. And that made it very, very difficult, especially for, I'm a type A personality. I'm a little bit of a control freak, and so to have my life dictated to me and to be completely helpless to do anything about it, that was very difficult for me to come to terms with. So through therapy, through EMDR, I've learned how to manage those things. And you're right. I will love Amber until the day I draw my last breath.
Mhm.
There's no doubt about that. There's no denying that. But I don't have to let the experience, the loss, the tragedy, I don't have to let it define my life. And that's something that Victor is struggling with in Prometheus in Chains, is
Mhm.
taking control of what's happening. Because when we meet him, he is in the darkest, deepest depths of his personal hell. And he's been self-medicating with every drug you can possibly
Mhm.
imagine, alcohol. He's completely isolated himself from his friends and colleagues. And he's just locked himself inside of his own tomb, essentially, and focused entirely on resurrecting Elizabeth. And, it drives him into a bit of psychosis, which
Mhm.
untreated depression, untreated PTSD can very easily progress into that type of psychosis. So, mental health awareness and being confident enough to seek help for mental illnesses, it's a very, very important issue. And it's something we all need to be aware of and to talk about more.
No, it's real. Like I said,
Hmm.
I everybody like the one thing I again, intellectually speaking, we know nothing is forever. And it's something
Hmm.
that has to be, but it's easier if you look at it from yourself. Pardon me. It's
Yeah.
easier if you look at it from
When
yourself
you,
because you can, it's easier to accept. Like, I may not have this hair someday. I may not have this beard someday. I might get gray.
mm,
I might become, a little rounder as because I'm getting older. I mean, that's just part of the journey of life. I can accept that, right?
mhm.
Somebody else I care about, that's it's it's humbling, right?
Mhm.
You realize like you think a lot again, the illusion of control. Like I'm not a control
Right.
freak, be it right. I'm not because I've God's kicked my ass plenty of times in this life. I am well aware.
Yeah.
I'm well aware. I'm well aware of what I
Yep. The
can't do.
universe has a way of putting you in your place anytime you get a little too, as my grandmother would say, a little too big for your britches.
Yes, yes, yes. Like okay, like I said, I'm pretty proud of the fact that I've done 900 episodes, but I also will never
Heck
forget.
yeah.
I'll never forget the fact that on this show I've had a 3-year-old hold it hostage. So it's one of those. See
Oh,
again,
wow.
I had an author guest. She's actually one of my favorite guests. I actually call him. There's actually a clip. I call him Harrison is my nemesis. He just shows
Ah.
up so those the episodes he came in. He was like every 3-year-old wanting his attention from his mom, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
what are you going to do? Like
What do you do? You
seriously,
can't argue with a little kid. No, you gotta let them, they're gonna
Yeah,
take
exactly.
over.
So I am very well aware that there is, and again, the universe constantly reminds me that there's very little I am truly in control. The only thing I am truly in control of is what I choose to do with
Mhm.
everything around me. That is
Absolutely.
that's legitimately when you sit there and think about it, right, and really, really think about it, I actually am comforted by this. I don't know if you're there yet, but I'm comforted by this. I have very little say in what goes on in the world, and
Yeah,
I'm okay.
sometimes it can be comforting to know that.
Yeah, no, I'm actually very good with that because I had this epiphany. First off, I'm a big fuck up, Rich. I would screw it
We
up.
all are, dude. We all are. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it, man.
Yeah, but I would really like seriously, I would have to be the adult. That's a scary thought. Like, honestly, if I was in charge, I think everybody would be like, "Oh god, what did he do?" It's
Mhm.
like I would be like, this would not be a Zevia. This would be something a lot stronger if I was in charge,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah,
But
being an adult is hard.
yeah, and being an adult with like that kind of responsibility is like I honestly I don't want it, and I realized like I think most of I had this like big epiphany. It's like very few of us choose freedom. We want control.
Excuse me.
No worries.
Whew.
This
Sorry,
isn't
when I
this
sneeze,
ends up
there's always two.
yes. No, it's all good. but I realized, like, I think one of the I like, again, this is how I stopped being as much of a control freak. I mean, I'm an artist. I have a bit of an ego still, and I always will.
Mhm.
But I kinda came to this really, really cool place of, I'm not in control, and that's okay by and large. I mean, I still push forward, still do my thing, still, but I realized I don't need to be in control. And then if I'm not in control, I'm oddly free to do what I want. It
Life is a lot easier when you're not in
Exactly.
control.
Exactly. No, it really is. And I just accepted that, right? So
Yeah.
again, I'm not, again, I will never belittle what you went through. But I mean, there's always a little bit of lessons learned. And that was, again, in any of my most painful moments, I realized, you know, I'm not in control, but it's okay. It'll even if it's never gonna be the same, it'll be alright eventually. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Absolutely. I mean, it can't rain all the time.
One of my favorite movies.
Yeah, mine too. God, I
Yeah.
loved it. Fun fact: I one of my first because I went through several incarnations of my theater before I actually owned the brown coat. But one of my first theaters where my company operated was in the same building where Brandon Lee died.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So from Wilmington, North Carolina, which is where The Crow was shot, and yeah, we had a little black box theater in the basement of this building, and yeah, that was the same building where Brandon Lee was shot and killed.
That's dark.
I know, right?
That's dark. Wow. Because I know I know I messed the actor up because, again, it wasn't his fault. It just
Hmm.
the prop was, again, whatever you might think about that. There are conspiracies about it. There's lots of stuff about it, like the equipment too. But
Hmm.
however you view it, I mean, he ultimately was the one that pulled, like, that. I know that messed
Hmm.
him up. That messed him
Oh,
up. It wasn't.
absolutely. I mean, how could it not? You just
Yeah,
took a human life,
yeah.
and yeah, that's terrible. And yeah, it was such a tragedy because there was so much promise in Brandon Lee, in his not only in his career but him as a human being, and all of that was cut short by a mistake, an
Mhm.
accident, a terrible, terrible accident. So, it definitely scarred that man and everybody who worked on the set. Like one of my regular patrons in Wilmington was he was the weapons master
Oh,
on the Crow,
man.
and so ultimately that weapon was his responsibility, and it absolutely wrecked him. He left his career in the film industry. He also had worked, he owned a security firm, and he let that just go bankrupt. And it ruined his life, the guilt that, and he just didn't know how to cope. He didn't know how to deal with it, and that's a very sad situation. And um, it was an accident. It was a terrible, terrible accident. But it not only took Brandon Lee's life, but it ruined a lot of other lives as
E-
well.
Even the Crow franchise, as I love that movie, right? And the one big change I know in the scene was they did the scene where he held a gun to the guy's head and drive. That whole
Hmm.
scene changed because that was like the last scene they didn't film,
Hmm.
and the fact that he was just silent and he let the guy just talk his way into, like, his own guilt, right?
Hmm.
That was such a different, although it's one of my oddly, it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie because it's the one where the Crow doesn't say anything
Yep.
because there's nothing he
He's
needs to
just
say.
there. Nope.
Yeah, there's nothing he needs to
Nope.
say. The character's conscience is ultimately what does him in, and I thought that was one incredibly powerful scene. It's like, if you confront
Hmm.
somebody with their wrongs, right? If you force someone to look at in the face of what they've done, this is how it undoes everything in them.
Hmm.
He
The
actually,
worst monster we'll ever face is ourselves.
exactly, and in that particular case, he almost didn't have to kill him. That was the thing.
Hmm.
He
Yeah.
actually, that was. in an odd way, that was a merciful death in that movie because it
Yeah,
was
you're absolutely right. It was
yeah, it was a
mercy.
mercy. It was a mercy. Like that guy got a mercy, whereas all the other guys, not so much, not so
Mm-mm.
much. But I mean, so I mean, it made it different. But again, the franchise has never been the same too, because every time now that franchise get fingers crossed on the one they're filming
Hmm.
now. But
Yeah.
every time it's been filmed, bad things have happened to
Yeah,
the
it's kind of a cursed franchise in a way if you think about it. It's a little scary, but
yeah.
I'm sure
I,
it's
I
just all coincidence and things like that. But yeah.
well, sometimes it's just I think there's like I think we have this tendency. Um, I think we have a tendency, and for good or for ill, to um we repeat patterns, whether we realize
Hmm.
them or not. And I sometimes think sometimes it's innocent. Like I one of the things again the last few years has kind of taught me is we have essentially the same conversations over and over and over and over and over
Hmm.
again. It's just when they happen and why they happen, right? You mind if I go to something just a touch lighter before we come
No,
back
go
to
right
this?
ahead. Yeah.
So
No, definitely. Let's drop some levity. Let's drop the grave diggers in there.
yeah,
We
exactly.
need to.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it is serious, but I don't want to do it the same way. Like you've been watching the AI art thing, just like I have,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Do you know what that actually reminded me of? I had this epiphany. Like so Lucy Lightner was a guest, and we talked about AI taking over work, and this has been a regular conversation piece since the Civil War, which it
Hmm.
has been, right? It's been a regular over and over and over and over and over again, right? This iteration of it though reminds me of Napster.
I can see
That's what
that. Yeah.
yeah, like that's what's it's like, wait, we're going through the Napster phase. Like the trend, like we went through
Hmm.
the trendy part of it. Now we're in like almost like phase two. And again, I'm not look, I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not that's not the conversation today. I think
Right.
the way as it currently stands, it's a bad thing with the potential to be a good thing. That's where I actually stand right now. It's going through the oh, it's new, and we're gonna see what bullshit we
Right.
can get away with right now.
Yeah.
Before phase three, the lawsuits come into play, and when the lawsuits come into play, we'll figure out where this actually fits in the corner of the universe, right?
Hmm.
So, and we haven't gotten there yet. But
No.
but the thing is, it's like, my God, this is Napster all over
Yeah,
again.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of similarities, and you're not gonna just like with Napster. You're not gonna stop the technology. It's
No,
going to happen. It's here. It's going to keep improving. It's going to keep changing. It's not going away. Now, maybe as with Napster, what'll happen is it'll pave the way to some sort of streaming service because people, when technology underground technology like this, it only arises when the people have a need for it. When people say the current system is unfair to me or it's more expensive than I want to put out for it. So, Napster paved the way for iTunes and
Spotify.
for Spotify and YouTube Music and all these streaming apps that are out there. They couldn't have existed without Napster, because now nobody wants to go and pay $20 for an album to get one song that they like, but people are perfectly happy to pay 99 cents to get that song or to pay $20 a month to be able to listen to whatever music they want. So I I don't know enough about AI art to make any sort of expert or really
Yeah,
informed
yeah.
commentary on it. So I don't know how I don't know what the ultimate evolution of AI art is going to be, but artists are going to have to be compensated for the use of their work.
I
That's a very basic principle of the way our economy operates,
I agree. I actually agree, but I also think this is and I don't think a lot of artists are looking at it like this. This is an interesting opportunity. We have a model where this could go,
Yeah.
right? We have a model already. I mean, it exists in music, it exists in movies, it exists in other arts.
Yeah.
So why not be ahead of the curve? Like
Right. I mean, like,
yeah. I mean, instead of react, like I think that's the only thing I would say to any artist listening to this. I get why you're concerned. I legitimately get
mhm.
it. At the same time, technology isn't going to go away. So
No.
what you really should, I actually, I said this to one artist, like you should right now, if you, what you guys should be doing right now is negotiating with a streaming service of some kind now, get that established now.
Yeah, get some sort of, get
But
some
yeah,
sort of royalty the way musicians get royalties every
yeah,
time their music's
and
played. Every time the machine accesses your art for inspiration, maybe you get a fraction of a penny,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
or
you get some sort of royalty, you know?
but right now, like this is just the way I'd see it. Like right this minute, because none of this stuff has been set in stone yet. You might be able to
Mhm.
get a better deal. Like the one thing I will say about Spotify and Amazon to a lesser extent, I know we both respond to our Amazon overlords just a touch,
Of
but
course.
but at this they dictated the royalty fees for us because they
Mhm.
set up first.
The system, yeah.
Yeah, right? The system hasn't been set up yet. There's
Mm-mm.
actually
And
an
whoever
opportunity.
builds the system controls the system.
Exactly. There's an opportunity right now. If someone was to jump on that,
Mhm.
now you could get a better deal for everybody than streaming. It actually would force streaming and books to do better deals themselves. It would actually
Right.
force it, right? But again, it's about, and then, like I said, this is just now. AI will get better. It'll become a much more interesting thing. I think in 5 years, it's going to be very interesting to see where the technology goes.
Mhm.
That all said, right this minute is still very much the Napster, Spotify. That's the angle it's likely going to
Mhm.
go. And so if you know where the end of the road is, it's about having the foresight to go, okay, so these companies are going to go out of business because of their whole principle. But someone with a little bit more ethos and money is going to say, there's an opportunity here. So
Mhm.
let's go find those people. Let's make a deal. Let's get everybody on board with this, right? Because right, and if you do it now, if you wait too late, the artists aren't going to get anywhere near the money they did.
Right.
But if you do it now, you might be able to
Maybe
get a
they
better.
do.
Yeah.
Exactly, because it's one of those things. Again, you're not going to stop it. You
Yep.
cannot stop progress. Now, you can call it progress or not progress if you want, but from a technological
Mhm.
perspective, it's progress. Now, it may not be progress in your world because you think it's taking work away from you. And I don't know if AI art is taking work away from artists. I think someday it will, because the technology will continue to improve. But I was actually a friend of mine, Addy Granoff. He's a comic book artist. A lot of people probably recognize his name. He was talking about how, from a very rational perspective, when he started as a very traditional artist, drew everything by hand, and then he started using Photoshop and digital programs to create his art. And it still required artistic skill,
Oh yeah.
but it was different. And people in the beginning were that, just like they are with AI right now, people were, losing their minds and calling digital artists. They were saying, "Oh, that's not real art." Real art is sitting down and hunched over your
Yeah.
drawing
Yeah. Oh,
table with
absolutely.
your blue lines. And yes, that's art. But digital art is also art. And now, again, I am saying this speaking only for myself with a very limited understanding of how the AI technology works. So, any artist out there who's listening to me, if you know more than I do, please tell me. I'm not trying to insult you, but I'm going to present a different perspective from it. I'm a writer, I paint with words. Okay. AI allows me, I can type my words that come from my head, I can type it into this program, and it will create what I see. So the technology, as long as it continues to steal from other artists, I will never use it.
Yeah.
If it is stealing, because I
Oh
I
yeah.
love
No,
my
no, no.
artists, I respect them.
Yeah. No, I'm completely copacetic with you there. Like I said, we're
Yeah.
coming to the lawsuit phase of this soon.
Yeah,
You
oh,
can see it,
absolutely.
right? Yeah, and when we get to that point, it's going to be because it's like, hey, there's this thing called copyright, and you like we kind of built this up. There's got to be rules to
Yep.
this, right?
Absolutely. There's got to be rules, and it's got to be, you know, and again, I don't understand the technology, and I don't understand, I don't, my artist friends don't understand how I'm able to create the things I create with words. I have no idea how they create the things they do with their pens because it's
Yes,
beautiful. But, you know, there's potential for the technology. And if it gets to the point where, and this is the part I don't understand, and I've never had anybody explain it to me. And this is about the stealing of the art. My question is, does it use somebody's art or does it mimic someone's style? And if it mimics someone's style, how is that different than me going to the Museum of Modern Art and studying Francis Bacon for 3 days in a row and then painting something in Francis Bacon's style? That's not theft. But if it's actually stealing pieces of your art and turning that into a new work, then that's probably theft. I mean, it's going to be up to the courts to decide whether it's, or it could be argued that it's transformative work. It's taking the original work and transforming it into
I
another way, which is totally legal.
but
So
but
there's a lot of questions to be answered.
but it's more the former than the latter. I've seen it. I've kind of seen how the algorithms work. It's more the former than the
Yeah,
latter. I think the company's going to lose that battle, just basically
probably.
on what I've seen. Hi, After Goddess.
Hello.
Hello. Right? So, no. I think they're gonna like my own opinion just based on again, there's precedence for this
Yeah.
already. So I think
Absolutely.
they're gonna
We have the whole Napster thing as a roadmap for how this is going to go. And
yeah,
again, as long as the algorithms are stealing art from people and not compensating the artist, then it's a technology that I will not touch. Now,
yeah.
full disclosure, yes, when the Lenza thing first happened, I downloaded it. I made my 20 avatars or whatever.
Yeah, no.
And yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then my friends started posting about it and I was like, "Oh, this is bad. Oh, I
Yeah.
feel I feel guilty now."
But again, the trend. It always starts off
Mhm,
as a trend, right? It always
mhm.
does. Hey, this is cool. Then you think long term, it's like, oh shit, what have I done?
Yeah,
Right,
like,
right.
uh-oh. Just
Yeah,
because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
exactly. Even if it seems fun, right? But that's
Right.
the thing, right? There is potential for this. I'm looking. Yeah. That's
That's a
true.
great line, "We learn better, we do better." Absolutely.
Exactly. Absolutely. Now me personally, I am looking forward to the day when the AI algorithms start writing porn. That will be
Alright, so you did yeah, the key word I took out of that is writing. And this I've had to explain to some of my artist friends because, we can all be very myopic.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
the only thing that matters in the world is what's happening to me. And I've had to have conversations with my friends and I'm saying, those of us who write, we've been competing with AI for almost 5 years now. I mean,
Exactly.
there are AI bots. Like used to, you could get a job as a blogger. You can't get a job as a blogger anymore because there's computers that write it for you. You
Well,
know?
it's interesting because I actually you can, but what's happened is used to be AI is like, hey, I can make this SEO stuff. Now the thing is, it's still in comparison crap, right? It's in
Hmm.
comparison crap. If you
Of
want to
course,
engage,
I've also read some professional bloggers who don't know the difference between your, and your.
yeah.
So,
So the fact that AI has funneled some of those out, that's probably
mhm.
not a bad thing. Let's be honest,
Right?
right? Right?
Yeah.
Right? But
But
no. But again, from a creative fiction standpoint, like I could definitely see a day where the genre, like the basic format for a genre is right. Yeah. Oh, it's true.
yes,
It's true.
English is such a messed up language. It's so complex and difficult and it doesn't make sense. And it's like, why is this word spelled like this here, but it's spelled like that over here? And this combination of letters makes this sound sometimes, but other times it makes this sound.
Or or or,
Yeah,
or
no.
Or my personal favorite is when we actually steal from other languages. Hey, we have the same word too. Why does it mean
Right?
something different? Right? Why is it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, circling back to the AI, as a writer, if again, perfectly qualifying this, if the AI ever develops to the point where it's able to create based on my words without stealing from another artist, that is a very exciting prospect for me, because what a lot of people don't know about being a creator owned writer, I have to pay for everything out of my own pocket. I have to
Yeah.
pay my artist, Jordan Dorenzo. We joke about it all the time because as soon as he gives me a page, he expects to be paid right there. Like, he won't even upload the high res versions of the page until I've paid him. Now, that works great for writers, or excuse me, for artists. But as a writer, so Cult of Dracula came out in 2021. Okay. Rise of Dracula came out in 2022. I am just now, at the end of 2022, I am just now getting paid for the trade paperback for Cult of Dracula that came out in 2021. So 2 years ago, I made the money, and now I have to wait for it 2 years to get it. My artists, on the other hand, page, money, page, money, page, money.
That's why.
And it's a
That's why.
lot of money. It's very expensive. So if the technology develops to a point where, without stealing art from other people, I can describe what I want to see to a computer and do it and produce my book for a tenth of what it would cost me to hire an artist, that's something I'd have to very strongly consider, because this is a business. This is how I keep a roof over my head and food on my table.
Yep.
So,
And,
again, as it stands now, the technology is theft, it's stealing. It may not always be that way. And at that moment, is when artists should probably get worried about their job security, because right now there's really no check on their page rate. An artist can say, I want $500 for a page, and you're kind of stuck. I mean, artists that I've worked with don't do that, because they're awesome people, but they can hold a book hostage. And I've never run into that, but I've heard stories from other creators, and take it with a grain of salt, but I've heard stories about artists holding a book hostage because the writer couldn't come up with all of the money right now to pay them for the pages, because he's not going to get paid for 2 years. So, I could see it. I could see some uses for the technology if it evolves to where it can operate without stealing.
and I mean, and in all fairness too, it also depends on. I think the other interesting thing that's going to develop eventually is,
Mm-hmm.
will the AI be entitled to compensation at some point down the road?
Yeah.
Well, I
Are you?
mean,
Yeah, we're getting into Bradbury here.
yeah, but we're not that far away. Right? At
No,
that
we're
point,
not.
we're not that far away at that point. So I mean, that's the other check and balance on this, right? Hey, we don't
Mhm.
have to pay this guy the same way. Well, what? Okay, what if the AI eventually goes, "Fuck you, motherfuckers! You're gonna pay me too," and then what? What are you
Exactly.
gonna do? Right?
And then you're just, now the computer's holding you hostage, and oh
Yeah,
boy,
yeah, and you know what? That's fair. Like, let's be perfectly honest. That's fair. At that point, you'd be
it
like,
is.
right, right. But no, I mean, I like, for me personally, I'm looking forward to the day that the writers break into erotic romance, like the AI breaks into that. I'm looking forward to that. Right. I'm also actually,
It could do it.
ironically,
It could
I
do it now. The companies, because they want the software to be widely available on the app stores, they put the bumper lanes on there and won't allow that type of art to be created. But the computers can do it. I mean, the
yeah,
AI, if the AI can draw a person, climbing on top of a motorcycle, it can definitely draw a picture of, a lover crawling on top of another lover,
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so
exactly. I mean, that's when we know he's made it. Oh my
yeah.
god, that's when we, like, that will be the line. I was like, it's in. It's here to stay. Why? Because people are gonna get into that. It's like that's
Mhm.
just the way it
And
is.
author goddess, you are so right about writers needing so many support creators,
Yes.
especially when you're, writing comic books. It takes a village, man. I mean, to for I can sit here and script out a book, all day long, but I can't draw it, and I can't color it, and I can't letter it, and you have to have these other artists to make your work a reality.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're
Well,
absolutely right there.
well, author gosh, you missed it. I don't know if you were here. We were talking about like when we started this part of the conversation. I mentioned Napster at the very beginning
Hmm.
because that's the
Hmm.
phase we're at, right? I think inevitably, what I see there, where I see this ultimately going is artists are going to go. They're going to create a system like Spotify or Amazon or any of these big things where an artist will get paid for any work they donate that's used. That's what I
Hmm.
see happening. Now that is probably I say 2 years down the road, right?
Could be,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I'd say about 2 years down the road before it hits that point. Right. I feel next year is the lawsuit phase of this, right?
Yeah,
Then
probably.
that's yeah. So it's going to be about a year of lawsuits, and I think the companies that are currently existing either will evolve or die. Right, one of
Hmm.
those real fast, and whatever comes out of that will establish something. That's how I see this going. That now. Maybe I'm an optimist, but as I talked with Rich, there's a history. Like I've seen this. I kind of have
Hmm.
seen this before, so that's kind of how I see it. So I don't.
Hmm.
That's why I don't have the doom and gloom about it. I just like okay, it's a process. There's like but I mean, if you want to speed up the process, we mentioned Disney earlier. Put some Disney images in there. That will. I
Yep, they'll sue it and bring it down real fast.
yeah, exactly. You don't fuck with
But
Disney.
there's something about us as humans where we are, and it's a conundrum, because we are, as a species, both inspired to seek advancements, but also afraid of new technologies. I mean, you go all the way back. You go all the way back to the Industrial Revolution. People were terrified that machines were going to take their jobs, and
Hmm.
yeah, the machines did take certain jobs, but then it opened up the door for other jobs that were safer and paid better. And then people thought that television was going to be the death of movie theaters. I just went to see Avatar: The Way of Water last night in 4DX on a giant IMAX screen, and I basically rode a roller coaster for 3 hours. I can't do that on my TV. So TV didn't kill theaters. Movies didn't kill radio. CDs didn't kill live performances. Napster didn't destroy the music industry. AI is not going to destroy the art industry. Some people, those on the lower rungs, yeah, they're going to lose. Some of the people on the upper ends of it, they're going to have to take a step down a peg, but it's not going to destroy. And as you said, adapt or die.
Yeah. Well, okay. So here's the thing. This is the human nature aspect of it. Life never stays still, and we all
Yeah.
are looking for better ways to do these things. However,
The only constant is change.
that is correct. We hate that shit. That's
Hmm.
the reality. We just hate
Hmm.
it. It's like
We
there's
just want everything to be the same, but better.
we want to be comfortable. That's the thing.
Hmm.
That's the real get, right? Is we let ourselves we
Some
want
of
to
us, some of us want to be comfortable, and others are disruptors. And people like
I'm
Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, Jeff
I
Bezos.
well, again, but even them, but they were looking, but again, they were looking to make their lives better. Like whatever you
Everybody's
might
looking to
think,
make their lives better. Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, whatever you might think of Bezos or whatever people think about Musk or any of these guys, doesn't matter what you think of them personally.
Hmm.
They 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 were looking at it. They always look at things specifically like the very human aspect. Bezos built a company in a basement. He had
Hmm.
I now I don't know if he ever envisioned this. I'm sure there are days he wakes up and he's like, "What the fuck am I doing here?" Right? I'm sure there are days he wakes up and is like, "What
Hmm.
am I doing here?" Right?
There
But
was, and speaking of a guy like Bezos, I think he did know exactly what he wanted to build because, people don't realize that Amazon, for the first 15 years it was in existence, lost money.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And Bezos was offered, Microsoft offered him $500 million for Amazon back in the early 2000s. He said no. He said no to $500 million. I think he knew where he was going, and
No. Again, you have a plan, right?
mhm,
But okay, so he modeled from Walmart. Now Walmart has a lot of good and a lot of bad that comes with it,
mhm,
right? Amazon has a lot of the same goods and bads that came with Walmart. It just does.
mhm.
So he knew what he wanted, but I also think Amazon's bigger than Walmart ever was.
Oh
And I
God,
think,
yes.
oh yeah,
It's a it's a behemoth.
yeah, it's a behemoth. There's a point in the end, like we talk about like losing the lack of control. There's a point in the machine where you're just basically, I'm just pedaling for the ride at this point because
Mhm.
I don't know where I'm going anymore. This thing's just doing what it's doing. So
Yep.
I he definitely had a vision. I agree with you there. He definitely had a vision, right? But I think in his most honest and wildest dreams, I don't think he'd be looking at it like he imagined it being big, but it's like you wake up
Maybe
every
not
morning.
this
This
big.
yeah.
Yeah.
You have no
And
control. You have no control over that, right? Like you don't.
no,
Like so it's just like he woke up, it's like, what the fuck? Like this
I
I
think
mean
I think Amazon's a really good example of an instance where a technology did destroy an industry, but it wasn't because I don't think it was the technology that destroyed the brick and mortar retail businesses. I think it was their misunderstanding of the marketplace that ultimately destroyed them because the big, and I've never understood because this is so very simple if you think about it, but so all of the major retailers miss this point. Their strength, the thing Amazon can't give them, is the fierce urgency of now.
mhm.
If I can walk into a brick and mortar store, I can take what I want, I can give them money, and I can go home with it right then. That's better than waiting 3 days for Prime. But for some reason, all of these retailers have decided the only way to survive in the era of Amazon is to compete with Amazon. I can't tell you how frustrating it is for me to go into a store and look for what I want, it not be there, and ask an associate like, "Hey, do you have this?" And like, "Oh no, but you can order it from our online store."
And
I'm like, "Bro, if I wanted to order it online, I would have stayed home, opened Amazon, ordered it, and waited. You had the opportunity to get my business because I walked into your store.
Yep.
You lost my business because you didn't have what I wanted." So if retailers would just figure that out and stock their damn shelves, they would take a huge bite out of
Well,
Amazon's.
it's understand well, here's the thing. Like this is something that I think this is the where I think this comes down to what I call business education,
Mhm.
right? Okay, we just came out of the pandemic. Do you know what I want when I go out? I want
What's
good
that?
service. I want good
Yeah,
service, right?
yeah.
That's what I want. That's what I want. So many places suck right now when it comes
Mhm.
to that very basic principle.
Yep.
And this is true by the way, even if you want to talk about Napster in the music industry, right? Okay, I like CDs now. I was gonna mention this. But you know why? They're not
Why?
done the same way. They're not done the same way they were done back in the '90s when the music industry was at its most bloated. You go buy a
Mhm.
CD for one fucking song, and you'd be like, "That's it." That's not
Mhm.
the case anymore. Most albums are actually incredibly intricate. I mean, they still have the quote unquote odd dud song here and there, but there's
Mhm.
a lot more attention to detail in the CD today than there
That's
was.
good.
Yeah.
Technology forced a change in
Yeah.
the way we do business.
Yep.
And I think, circling back to I think eventually AI is going to force
Yeah.
it's going to force artists to adapt and they're going to have to step up their game. And it's just, again, as long as it steals artists' work, it's a bad thing. I will never use it. However, when it evolves to the point where it's no longer stealing from people's work and the machine is literally able to think and imagine and create for itself, that's when artists are going to have to adapt. You're either
Yeah.
going to adapt or you're going to get another job.
Yep.
And, and that day is coming. Don't be brick and mortar retailers. Don't dig in your heels and, but bury your head in the sand. Prepare for the technology because it's a coming whether you want it or not.
And well, yeah, that's it. That again, this is the reality of it's the reality of the writing game. It's the reality of what I do. It's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be business people. We have to evolve
Mm-hmm.
to the point where we're like, okay, what do I offer that's awesome and made of cheese that people will want?
Right.
Right. And in my case, in my case, I have an incredibly big mouth. That's what I do very well.
There's always going to be a place for that.
Yes. Right. Right. And I love the fact that every once in a while, the way I say it, it cracks you right the hell up. Right.
Yep.
So, right? Because you get the point, right? There's that's the reality of the situation is, I mean, yeah, the technology isn't going to go away. And again, what will eventually happen too is this is also going to possibly create new forms of art. That's that might be
that's way down the road.
Yeah, that's down the road. But that's ultimately what's going to happen. Now,
it's coming. It's going to happen.
Right, so,
it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
Now, that all said, again, you don't have – now, this is something I will say to ours. If you don't want to go all the way in on the technology, that's fine. You don't have to. What you have to understand is, what do you offer that's amazing? Because if you offer something incredibly amazing, I don't care, AI, no AI, you will find somebody to pay for it. Right? You just have to be aware of what the marketplace actually is.
Yep. Know the business, know the market. And, that's a thing, that's an advantage I have over some of my my peers. I have a business degree. I didn't just decide one day, oh, hey, I want to be a writer. I want to be an artist. And then not and then just neglect learning how to make money off of it, because it's like in South Park, it's like the underpants gnomes. Step 1, steal underpants. Step 2, step 3, profit. People skip over that essential part in the middle, the business. How do you make the profit? And so yeah, people are going to have to figure out how the business works, and and they're going to have to make some hard decisions.
Well, it's filtration, and that's that like step 2 is, and this is where I will go, and then we'll go tie back into Prometheus and Change to wrap this bad boy up, because I love chatting with you. I like I do.
It's very easy to talk to you, man.
Yeah. I sound sane most of the time, but that's okay.
Most of the time.
Yeah. But what I will say is the reality of the situation is, like, the biggest part of this game I've learned is it's a filtration process. And it sounds so fucking simple, but what it comes down to is, who's going to find value in your work, and how do I cater to those people? That is literally it. Like, that is that.
And that's one thing, the difference in getting a business education versus getting an art education, because I have both. I have so, but in art school, they teach you don't sell your work for less than you think it's worth. In business school, they teach you your work is worth whatever someone will pay for it. Now, you can sit there and you can say, my painting is worth $10,000 and I'm not going to accept anything less for it. But if the market tells you that your painting is worth $1,000, that's what your painting's actually worth. And again, that's the difference between having a business degree versus a straight art degree. And there are a lot of my artist friends who, that I know, who are struggling because somebody offered them, say their rate for doing a cover is $500. Well, Some of them have, they'll say, "Why, I haven't worked, I haven't done a cover in 6 months." And I had this one guy, he offered me $300 to do a cover, but that's not worth it. I'm like, well, dude, by not accepting that $300 offer, you lost $500, because your work, they wouldn't buy it at 5, but if somebody will buy it at 3 and that's the customer you have, take the 3, man, take the money. But again, business degree versus art degree.
Well, there's also, okay, this is the weird balance here, right? This is something I do video content for, like, I do advertisements and stuff like that.
Sure.
I charge a lot for that, right? I don't always get a regular customer stream that way, but there's two reasons I charge this much. And it was the very first lesson I learned as a freelancer. The more you're paid, the more you're respected. This is a really weird thing I've learned about human nature is, right?
Well, why do you tell somebody how much you're paid?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't tell anybody how much money I make.
No. It's fair. No, but what I mean is, this is so my very first client was a Kickstarter, to do a Kickstarter. The payment would have been, if I had gone all the way through, it would have been 10% of what the Kickstarter raised.
Okay, that's fair.
Right? No, because again, the reason why I realized it wasn't fair was, so certain things I requested, like, who are the creatives involved? When's the launch date so I can really start doing my job?
Oh yeah,
I never got that information, right?
That's a problem.
Yeah, no, that's a huge problem. What I realized at the very beginning, though, is, why was I being ignored for all this stuff? Now, partly might have been my fault. Like, what could I have done differently? And then something just came in my head: charge more. And the reason why is, okay, maybe I don't get this individual, but this individual isn't taking me seriously anyway. So I'm not making enough money, right? Yeah, you're worth more. Right. So this is the balance as an artist you gotta kind of deal with is, I have a podcast class for $250 off the Goddess. It really, like, information depending on how you market it, right, and who your clientele is. This is where I'm getting at too. Like, this is the important thing. Who are you trying to serve? Right? If you're trying to serve a certain clientele at a certain amount of income level, then that's where Rich says makes total sense. The flip side is, you have to make sure that whoever if you're charging too low when you're dealing with people like I just mentioned, you're charging too low.
Yep.
You're charging
you're going to attract when you lower your price, you are going to attract a lower quality of client. And if you've, if you're Shannon Mayer or you're Clayton Crane and you've got a wait list 100 people deep wanting you to do covers, there's a market for your work. You can charge whatever you want up until the point where that list cuts in half or cuts by 75%. But then you might start thinking, okay, I'm charging too much. But if you're a kid straight out of grad school, or if you've been working, maybe you've got 1 or 2 comics credits and you don't have a list of not even 100 deep, you don't even have a list 20 deep of clients who want to work with you, maybe you're charging too much and you're losing money by not taking less. Sometimes you make more money by taking less. It's the McDonald's approach. It's, they make their money by volume. And so, and there's no right or wrong way in business. You could be a volume business, or you can be a boutique business. Boutique businesses are really, really hard to make profitable. Volume businesses, it's almost impossible not to make money. So, again, it's understand the business, understand the marketplace, and then most importantly, understand your place in that marketplace.
Yeah. And making the decision what you want to do in it
as
well. That's the final factor. I'm somewhere between, I don't want to do a shit ton of volume, nothing, but I don't want to do like I don't necessarily want a ton of clients all the time. So my price point is what it is. Right now, do I get it? Yeah. I do. At least when I'm doing shit like this. Well, you need to actually. So I think the
Patreon.
important Patreon's a great place, but also here's the other thing. Author guys, this is something you got to understand. This is like, who is your ideal client? That's actually the other thing we were dancing around this to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
Take Rich. Rich is what I would call a mid-range client. He's mid-range. He won't
So
charge
where I
you.
am.
Yeah, he won't charge. He won't pay you the most. He won't short jip you either. But
Mm-hmm.
he's somewhere around the market average. So if you were drawing for him, there's an amount, and I can already kind of guess what he would expect to pay for a cover versus interiors. And that,
Mm-hmm.
right, and he won't go above that. He won't go below a certain point either, right? And he will pay you. That's him. Someone like me, I'm more in the low to mid range, right? I can only afford so much. However, I too will pay, right? Right? I'm a different client than Rich. It's the income stream we have and the access to what he's doing and where he has access to. That's the difference. So if you're going
Mm-hmm.
to cater to Rich, you're going to cater to Rich a certain way. If you're going to cater to me, you're going to cater to me a certain way. And you need to understand, who are your clients? Who do you want your clients to be? And if your clients aren't biting, it's because either you're charging too little or too much. It depends
Mm-hmm.
on who you're dealing with.
Yep. That's
But
absolutely right. It's all about knowing, again, knowing your marketplace and
yep,
knowing your place in it.
yep, exactly. And okay, in your particular case, beginners tend not to have a lot of money,
Very true.
right? You want like something you got to understand, like someone mid-range is what you want, right? You want someone mid-range, someone that's serious about it and is willing to see the value in what you're doing and is willing to pay for it. Has
Mm-hmm.
to be a bit of all three. So that's
Yep.
my advice, author guys, is, and what you do at that point is you research them and you try to figure out how to get them to bite. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's very succinct. Great advice right there.
Yeah, that's it. That well, then don't do a beginner class. Then don't do a beginner class. That's what it comes down.
Unless you find that people at the intermediate level aren't willing to pay for your service, then don't go for the customer you want, go for the customer you have.
Yeah,
If the only people who are willing to hire you right now are beginners, then hey, take the money. Unless you're independently wealthy and you don't have to make money.
yeah,
And if you're that person, then you can be really choosy about what you do. But if
yeah,
you're like the rest of us and you got to work, the market will tell you what you're worth. I mean, it always does. If you're too high, you won't have customers. If you're too low, you'll have more customers than you can handle. The sweet spot is when you have the right kind of customers who are going to pay you the right amount, and you're going to have a workload that you can balance without stressing. That's the ideal sweet spot to get to.
So we'll this is a conversation, but here's the thing: your content, in one sense, does not matter. That's not. I mean, and I say that, and I don't say that with like disrespect, right? It's understanding. It's understanding who's going to want that. Instead of actually looking at what you want to do, ask yourself who wants it,
Mm-hmm. Yep,
right? That's it.
exactly. Know your customer, know
Yeah,
your industry, know the marketplace.
yeah, and that's what we're gonna go. Now I'm gonna go back one more thing, and then we'll wrap this bad boy up. So, um, I did not know prior to this conversation that you lost your wife, so I wanted to actually do this properly. My condolences, right?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I did not know. I'm not gonna brag on too much. But Rich, I have two questions.
Yeah.
So when I go on the road and start really hammering this bad boy out, so
Hmm.
am I cool enough to come hang out with you in person?
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Catch me at a con or come see me in Knoxville, man. We'll go.
Yeah, yeah,
If you
yeah,
come to
yeah, yeah.
Knoxville, we'll have a great time.
No, Knoxville. So where's a cool spot in Knoxville? So I got tell you the rest of my crazy master plan.
Uh-huh.
I'm waiting till after Boxing Days are done up here, but I'm
Sure.
contacting all these breweries that do
Hmm.
like that ship everywhere.
Hmm.
So I see I can actually do shows in breweries.
Hell yeah.
So
We you can, if you come to Knoxville, something cool we can do. We can go to the next town over in Pigeon Forge, and we can go do a moonshine tour. So you go to a moonshine distillery, and it's free samples of every type of moonshine that they
oh
do, and
Jesus.
it's fun. They'll tell you the history of moonshine. So yeah, if that's something you're into, please come to Knoxville. We'll go
Oh
do
no,
it,
no,
man.
dude. I can't promise when just yet, but no, I have thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you every time we've
Yeah,
chatted.
man.
Yeah, yeah. So last point. It's not necessarily that. Who wants your class? We're gonna make this as specific as possible. Who wants your class? Right.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So
Find your market.
yeah, who wants what you offer? That's what it comes down to. Yeah, right. And if you can't find it, evolve. Like that's the thing, right?
Mhm.
That's just how it goes.
If you can't
But
find it, you're looking in the wrong place.
yeah, or it doesn't exist at the moment this moment, and that's fine. There's other things you
Yep.
can do, right? What I will say for so beyond that is you got when is Prometheus in chains, right?
Hmm.
Right. When does it come out?
This is the amazing part of this. It comes out on Free Comic Book Day.
That's awesome.
I know my book launching on Free Comic Book Day. How freaking amazing is that?
So
That is
are you doing
just such
anything
a
cool?
dream.
Are you doing anything
Well, I don't
cool?
know yet. That's up to the publisher and my publicist. We're making plans for Free Comic Book Day, but I will probably be at one of the larger stores that has done an exclusive for the book. I'll probably be there signing that on Free Comic Book Day. So yes, it's going to be a really cool day for me to know that my book's hitting shelves on Free Comic Book Day.
Well, no, that's an awesome day to launch a book, dude. Good.
Hell yeah!
No, good luck, man. Is it still through
Thank you.
Source Point? Is it Source Point or you
This
or
is through Red 5 Comics, actually. Through Red 5.
oh, I've
Yeah.
always
So,
so I okay. So we can't just go your book. I've been looking at Red 5 is a comic book place. I've been kind of looking at. It's like
mhm.
I want to try a book. Which one would you
Check out
recommend?
Dark
Yeah,
Age. Dark
yeah.
Age would be the first one I would read. It's a very good book. Red 5, they're a smaller publisher, but they're rapidly growing, which is very exciting because I like to build things. So I want to be a part of an up and comer. Their focus used to be on books. They didn't do anything that would be rated above like a PG-13. Obviously, I don't write PG-13 books. So for them to make a shift and to go into a mature rated book, that signals to me that they're ready to take the next step as a publisher. So I would expect some more grown up books to come out from them, and I think at that point the quality of their offerings is going to drastically improve.
I've always been impressed with their presentation. That's the one thing
Hmm.
about them. They were I think they're still I think a bit ahead of the curve of a lot of comic companies with all due
Hmm.
respect to them. They realize, hey, publishing has decentralized. We got to stand out now in some really cool freaking ways, and they do a wonderful
Hmm.
job of that. So
Yeah, they do.
yeah,
Their covers are great. Their books are high quality. They actually do marketing, which it blows my mind how many publishers and comic book people never market their book. I mean, think about it. When was the last time you saw an actual advertisement for a comic outside of reading a comic?
actually, that's the thing. I don't like. I know.
Hmm.
Like here's what boggles my mind. Okay, like here's what boggles my mind when I go to a comic shop right now. I look at the big two companies right now.
Hmm.
They are incredibly. I don't even know I can call them meat and potatoes. They're just like meat and meat right now in
Hmm.
terms of what they're offering. And you're looking at them, and I'm not talking Image. I'm not talking Source Point. I'm talking like DC and Marvel. And I'm like, why are you like at this point? I don't want to see another Batman book. I'm scared. Like I go to a comic shop, it's like, and I have nothing against Batman as a character, but that should
It's how
not
many
be.
times can you tell the same damn story? You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Well, there's not a Green Lantern book right now. There's not a Legion of Superheroes book right now, and you're like, why? For the love of like, why? Like you have these great. There's not a good Teen Titans book right now. Let's DC. Marvel. I mean, it's a bit eccentric for my taste, but that's always been kind of a Marvel's problem with the X-Men. They either it's really good and it's everywhere, or they
Mm-hmm.
ignore it completely, which is like,
Mm-hmm.
why? Right? Again, right? So,
Yep.
right, I don't get it. But yeah, no, like the lack this isn't just comics, but I think book publishers in general, the lack of building on names or titles outside
Mm-hmm.
of their boxes,
Mm-hmm.
right? That and it's amazing to me, I guess, the lack of business sense
Mm-hmm.
that I
You're,
see.
you know, you're absolutely right. You know, and it blows my mind sometimes, dealing with certain people in the industry I've dealt with who have so much ignorance to the way business works. And ignorance isn't a lack of intelligence, it's a lack of knowledge and training. So you can overcome ignorance very easily by educating yourself. And yeah, but it does blow my mind sometimes how many people just have no business sense and no understanding of business whatsoever. And if you're going to be a pro, you've got to know the business, because you can't just you cannot just put a book out there and put a paragraph in the previews catalog and expect it to sell 500,000 copies. That world is gone. It died. It ain't never coming back.
Yep.
But you have to market. You have to build a social media presence. You have to engage with your audience. You have to buy advertising, and it's just part of succeeding at business.
Well, okay. Here's my Marvel. You know what was one of the Marvel's best books, and it had nothing to do with it being in the comic shop?
What's that?
Unbeatable Squirrel Girl.
Oh God, I love Squirrel Girl.
Well, everybody loves that book,
It's so
right?
ridiculous, so
Yes,
ridiculous, but so
but do you know?
funny.
Do you know where that book was marketed and did a fantastic job?
Where?
Scholastic, the book club, the
Scholastic
little,
Press. Hell
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You want to know why?
Yep.
But
Book fairs.
the book fairs and the book clubs back
Yeah.
in schools. That's where
Yep.
our book sold,
Yep.
which is why
I.
it blows my mind. I would not like if I was DC or Marvel. This is just one of those things. I would always have. I would have kept Impulse from Mark Waid, like the Mark Waid era Impulse, and I would have
Mhm.
kept Unbeatable Squirrel Girl running forever. I don't care
Mhm.
if it makes a single fucking dime in the comic shop. I don't care. I want Scholastic. That's why Justice Bones always does
Mhm.
good.
Oh
It's
yeah.
there.
If you write the type of stuff that kids and schools will consume, you can make bank. Sadly, I'm not that kind of writer.
No. You're not that kind of but I mean, but it's the same idea. They're like, if I was your company, like, where I would do Prometheus and Chains, actual
Where?
theaters.
Mhm. Yeah.
That
Yeah,
the actual,
it could
yeah,
definitely find an audience there.
yeah,
Especially the crossover,
yeah.
with
No,
horror and
no.
comics.
It fits. So
Mhm.
if I was, if I was paid to market, that's where I'd go because
Yep.
it makes fucking
Mhm.
sense.
Yep, I do a ton of marketing, not only to comic book people but also to horror fans, because the crossover between horror movies and horror television shows and comic books, it's very heavy. And video gamers, I market a lot to video
Yeah,
gamers.
yeah, because video
Um,
gamers, there are Twitch streams where video gamers just like to be scared. So
mhm.
guess what? It's just perfect there, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Uh, all right. We kind of went a little off the rails there. We probably should wrap up at some point. But Rich, I did want to
Yeah,
say
I've got
for
like 5% battery left, so yeah,
yeah,
we
we
should
probably should
wrap
wrap
up
this up.
soon.
So dude, listen, an official plug, and I'll wish you a Merry Christmas afterwards, and we'll wrap this bad boy up. Does that sound like a plan?
Okay. Yeah. Do you want me to plug the book or plug your show, or what am I doing?
Well, you're plugging your book because it's like
Okay.
we talked for an hour. We talked for an hour. You guys will end it. Right?
Well, yeah, okay. So yeah, my name's Rich Davis. I'm writer, creator of Prometheus and Chains, which is a brand new comic coming out on Free Comic Book Day from Red 5 Comics. So ask your local comic book shop to order Prometheus and Chains. It's a play on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein set in the post-World War II atomic age, where Victor and Elizabeth are two of the Jewish scientists that fled Nazi Germany, worked on the Manhattan Project, and helped the Allies overthrow the Reich.
Which sounds awesome. And it's a great story. If you're a fan of horror, or as we talked at the very beginning, something like Full Metal Alchemist, this will definitely be your jam. And with that,
Absolutely.
folks, Rich, you're always awesome. I don't know if we're going to do another one like these before this show wraps up in this current incarnation, but if I didn't, you were wonderful. It was always wonderful to chat with you.
Right on, man. Always good to be here, and I hope you do make it to Knoxville so we can hang out and drink some moonshine.
That sounds like a plan. So everybody watching, everybody listening, I'm not going to advertise anything for me at the end of this episode because this is the holiday. So I just want to wish everybody Merry Christmas. I am back on the 26th doing a makeup episode with Barbara Kelberg first, and then second, I'm going to be doing a drink and draw for my official 900th episode. Got some cool guests lined up on Boxing Day, so definitely check that out. So to everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.